And from 1967 to 2013, every state in the United States and every province in Canada have had bloodless large animal mutilations, and no one has ever been seen, caught or convicted for them. Now here's a quote from Linda Moulton Howe's website where she explains what she thinks is going on. She says, "During my investigations, I had sheriffs, deputies and ranchers tell me that the mutilation perpetrators were creatures from outer space. Why? Because they were seeing completely silent objects in the sky over pastures that looked like small airplanes or helicopters that would dissolve into misty clouds. Further, ranchers reported to sheriff's officers that beams of light were coming down from glowing objects in the night sky, and some ranchers had even seen one of their cows rise in a beam of light or be lowered in a beam of light to the ground, dead and bloodlessly mutilated." Now, for this lecture, I just wanted to take a step back and be as objective as I possibly can with this evidence and make no assumptions whatsoever, just to try and stay open and explore, which is what Peter Hyatt says, because I know that there are skeptics who they will not accept the ET hypothesis. So in any investigation, you must address the questions in this order. What happened? How is it happening? Who's responsible? And why are they doing it? So let's look at the first question and see if we can just draw up a list of what we believe is happening in the animal mutilation scenario. So what is not happening is that mutilations are not being carried out by animal predators. That's obvious from those images. Mutilations are not disease. Mutilations are not carried out by human perpetrators operating on the ground, because there's never any footprints or tracks, even when cases are left on very soft ground. You never see tracks. Mutilated animals are not being tranquilized. So a number of those cases that you saw there, their blood tests are undertaken and there's no tranquilizer in the animal. This is a very interesting quote from a farmer from 1994 who had repeated mutilations on his land, and he witnessed a cow seemingly during one of these events. "I saw another cow like kneeling down on its front legs, but it did not have the hole in the rectum, it didn't have the mouth mutilated or anything. And I was just looking at it when all of a sudden I heard a loud noise. It was opposite from where I had seen the cow. It sounded like an arc welder going zzz. I looked around to where the sound was coming from, and I saw the cow that had been on its front knees had now been moved up over the wire fence to the other side. She was being tortured. That cow was being dragged sideways somehow with its legs touching the ground. The cow's back was moving toward the weird loud sound, and the cow could not move its legs to get up. So I raised my rifle and shot twice." So from that, we can say the animals are taken off the ground by something which is not visible. Okay. Very advanced surgical procedures are being carried out, as we've just seen. Now, I just want to highlight this case from February 2012. This is Ken Storch, who is a retired police officer in the United States who investigates animal mutilation cases in his spare time. So he lives in Oklahoma, and he got wind of this cattle mutilation case not far from where he lives, a few hundred miles away in Norwood, Missouri. And he was able to get to the site quite soon after the animal had been discovered. And he uses a metal detector in his research. So he got in his car, as I say, he got there very early in the morning, and here's part of the interview with Linda Moulton Howe.
We arrived in Norwood, Missouri around 7:30 in the morning. I have my crime scene kit with me. Bob has all his photography equipment, and I have a metal detector that I take with me on all cases. There's a full-grown cow, about 900 pounds. They took her tongue, and she still had hay in her mouth. And it isn't cut at the front. It's all the way down in the thorax is where they took it. Now, you tell me how they were able to take that tongue. The animal was eating when she was being operated on. She was feeding herself when she died. And her eye had been cored out, and her anus had been cored out. This is a fresh kill. The cow was probably dead sometime around 4:30 that morning. I get the metal detector out, and it's a white 2200 series metal detector. I've been using it for years. It has a program in it, and you can program it for whatever you want it for. And I programmed it for metals and platinum. And so I made sure that my metal detector was leveled out, that it was reading platinum, it was reading gold, it was reading silver. I tested it with actual platinum, gold, and silver that I carry in the case. Zeroed it out. First I wand around the carcass, out to where Galen's footprints first initiated contact. I stopped there. So I had a 10-foot radius on the carcass that I went over the ground and got nothing, not even a hit from nails. The computer reads that out. If you come across a nail or a staple from a fence or whatever, it won't read it because I'm looking for platinum and gold and silver. And so I come up to the carcass, and I start back at the anus, the udder, up to the stomach, up to the neck, and when I got to the nasal cavity, I got a hit, and it was a beep, and it popped up platinum, and it gives you a percentage, like 99% platinum. And Galen and Bob were at the muzzle of the animal, and Bob looked at me, and he goes, "You got something." And I got my readings on my test samples. It was doing the right thing. And I went back up to the nasal area of the cow, and I got nothing. Well, I moved it back, and right up underneath the eye socket of where the eye would have been, I get a boop. And when I went back up to the eye, it was gone. It had moved about 2 inches. And all of a sudden, I'm tracking this thing. It is on the move under the skin. It came up into the ear. And down in the ear canal, I can see what looks like a bioluminescent glow in the ear. I didn't actually see the implant, but it was coming up the ear canal, and it was bioluminescent. I could see a glow. You know what a lightning bug looks like?
Yeah.
Okay, it was of about that intensity, but it was bluish green is what it appeared to be, down in the ear canal. It starts to move again, and it's headed into the neck area. I'm tracking it with the metal detector, and I moved it down to the neck.
You're where the neck is connecting to the chest.
Correct.
So he said he saw a bioluminescent glow. Now, could that be from an insect? Because insects give off this bioluminescent glow. Well, I don't think so, because he detected platinum. I don't think insects contain platinum. So what could that mean? Platinum is a precious metal that is used in jewelry, but it's also used in engineering. Now this explains some of the uses of platinum in engineering. Just want to highlight part of it, which is that platinum is employed in wires and electrical contacts for use in corrosive or high voltage environments. So let's say there was a high voltage environment that platinum is being used in, that can create a glow. High voltage creates glow. Now, if you do a bit of research into high voltage and secretized aerial vehicles, such as the book written by Andrew Johnson, high voltage is almost always mentioned with regards secret propulsion systems. And the guy did say it was on the move. Right? So is it using high voltage as part of a propulsion system which is allowing it to move around inside the animal, right? So to me, it sounds like it's some sort of miniature drone which has got a very advanced propulsion system, possibly. I sent that clip to Andrew Johnson and asked, I said to him, well, why do you think the platinum is being detected? And he said that he thought it might be the result of a transmutation. So this is where one element turns into another element, and it is found in an effect called the Hutchinson effect, which you can read about in Dr. Judy Wood's book. But just to summarize very briefly, the Hutchinson effect has very strange effects on metals and matter, so it can make them like jelly or powder, but without heating them up. Okay, so if this was some sort of transmutation due to a Hutchinson type effect, is the object making a pathway for itself through the animal, right? But either way, whatever this thing was that this guy saw, my money is on that it's a piece of technology. It's a piece of technology that's been used in conjunction with the mutilation. So let's write down what we know is happening. An autonomous miniature drone enters the animal's body. The animal is taken off the ground by a method which is not visible. While the animal is off the ground, advanced surgical procedures are performed to remove blood, specific organs, sometimes fetuses, which are retained by the perpetrator. The miniature drone might be being used to immobilize the animal, or it might play some role in the procedures, and the animal is then dropped from a height after the procedures are complete. So that, as far as I can ascertain, is what is happening in animal mutilation cases. So we've defined the what. How is it happening? As I stated, it appears to be high technology. The surgical procedures on the animals suggest high technology, as do some of the other evidence, such as being lifted off the ground. So, who's responsible? I don't know. Sorry, folks, I haven't got the answer to that. David Caton, as you may know from my films, he believes it's not human beings doing this, that it's extraterrestrials. So I told him that I was going to be doing a lecture where I wanted to be as objective as I can with the evidence. So I said to him, well, David, you believe the ET hypothesis. Can you give me a paragraph that I can put on the screen which shows that this is extraterrestrial? Can you list me the evidence that points to ET in animal mutilations? And I got reams and reams and reams of photographs and reports from him. I said, no, I just want a paragraph. Why is it done by extraterrestrials? And he couldn't really provide that. So it seems to me that the claim that it's extraterrestrial is merely arrived at because it can't possibly be human beings. Yeah? So it's lack of evidence of human beings means it must be extraterrestrial. Yeah? So we don't have that technology. We don't have the stealth capability not to get caught. Yeah? We don't have the technology to be able to do what I've just showed you. So therefore it must be ET. That's the logic. I'm not aware of any direct forensic evidence of an ET involvement. Right? So for that reason, I'm still on the fence. Right? I know I've made other films about human mutilations where I've had people say to me that they've seen an ET, interesting evidence, right? But I'm still not prepared to commit to that, right? I want to try and be as objective as I can to keep as many people on board. Now, so let's park that one. Let's not address, well, let's address it, but let's move on to the next one, because there is some evidence on why this might be being done, the mutilation cases. So in the early 2000s, there was an organization called NIDS. This is run by this billionaire called Bob Bigelow, and he ran a project to try and explain the animal mutilations. And he had professionals working on it. You know, he was employing people with medical backgrounds who were examining the carcasses, trying to get to the bottom of the animal mutilation phenomenon. Now, I know some people would question Bob Bigelow and whether he has genuine motives. However, if you read the conclusions of their report from 2003, it's interesting because it has stood the test of time, right? This is still relevant now and matches the evidence that I've just showed you. So I'm going to read this, right? So this is a conclusion on animal mutilations that was arrived at in 2003. The primary conclusion of this paper is that the animal mutilation epidemic of 1970 to 2003 was and is a monitoring operation for an infectious agent that is spreading through the human food chain, cattle, sheep, and wild and farmed elk/deer. In North America, Canada, and the United States, the infection comprises a full-blown CWD epidemic in deer and elk and a subclinical BSE infection in cattle. The infectious agent, unlike all known viruses and bacteria, is almost indestructible, and the symptoms in people appear very difficult to diagnose pre-mortem. In short, this TSE agent is the perfect stealth killer. If the hypothesis is correct, animal mutilation operations are carried out by a knowledgeable group that is cognizant of the biochemistry and infectious potential of prion diseases and their fatal spread. So a prion disease is caused by a misfolded protein molecule or molecules, and it causes mayhem with the central nervous system. It's what causes BSE in cattle. So only recently, due to the intensive prion research carried in the past 2 decades, has the extent of prion replication become obvious in the eye, the tongue, the anus, large intestine and reproductive organs, see above of animals. So that we're seeing that now, right? So that lines up with now. If these specific tissues are indeed removed during animal mutilation for the purpose of prion monitoring, this implies an intensive knowledge of prion physiology, biochemistry and infectiousness, involving research results not published until relatively recently on the part of the perpetrators of animal mutilations. So what they're saying there is that the infectiousness of prions and the study of prions was not known about in the 1970s and 1980s when the mutilations were occurring. So it's as if whoever was doing the animal mutilations, if it was a prion monitoring program, had more advanced knowledge than the current medical science, right? The identity of the mutilators remains unknown, but in addition to knowledge of prion infectiousness research, a high level of technology, surgical skill and stealth has been a feature of animal mutilations. It is a recurring theme in law enforcement circles that not a single person has been caught or charged for the crime of animal mutilations in the 30-year history of the epidemic. So the reason why I'm saying that that stood the test of time is if you look at the animals that it lists and also the parts of the body that are taken, we still see that now, right? So I think that the program that this is describing is still going on now, right? So, but it still doesn't tell us who the hell is doing it, who the hell is running this monitoring program, if that's indeed what it is. It may not just be a monitoring program. They may be putting things into the environment which they are then monitoring the effects of. It might not just be a monitoring program to do with prions. Now, you often hear people say that if it was being done by a very organized human group, such as a government or a large company, that they would just fund their own research and buy their own animals and do it in private. However, if you consider the parts of the animals that are taken, it looks like they're looking at what's going into the animal and what's coming out of the animal. So this program, whatever it is, might be connected to the environment or to the earth. Therefore, running this program in a controlled space might not give them the results that they're after. That the whole program is possibly connected to the planet. Are they changing the environment and using the animals to monitor that? Are they introducing changes to the environment via these animals? I feel that the whole project is bigger than just the animals, that it's to do with the planet. So I don't think you can use that as an argument to rule out a human group. So as we say, stay open and explore. I don't know. So I've presented the evidence, and if anyone's got any thoughts on who they think is doing this, please let me know.